What is up, everybody? Trip Morgan here for Panthers Source. It is exactly 1 week since the first round of the 2018 NFL Draft for the Carolina Panthers, but that does not mean coverage stops here. No, it does not. We have got to recap the whole thing one good time in full, and I've got a good friend here with me today. But first, before we get started, as always, y'all go ahead while we're talking right now, like this post, but go ahead and like and follow the page if you haven't already, so you can get notifications whenever we go live to discuss the Carolina Panthers. We got the post-game show that I roll with during the season, breaking down each game, each week, looking towards the playoffs, NFC division opponents, all of that good stuff. And I discuss it all right here with you, bring people on. It's as easy as this right here. But right now, I'm going to cue this intro, and then we're going to get this special guest on the line, and we're going to have some fun talking about the Panthers' newest additions. So what's up, guys? I hope that intro still gets y'all as pumped up as it does me. I can assure you have not seen it as much as I have going through the editing process of it about this time last year, actually. But I'm telling you, I'm actually going to have to make some adjustments to that because, some of these guys are come and gone. That's going to be, that's part of football, I guess. But it's got me jacked for 2018. The draft had me jacked for 2018. We got some new additions. But here to discuss it with me is my good friend Dennis Walsh from the PounDenn podcast. Y'all have heard me talk about him. I've had him up here before. He's now teamed up with the Riot Report, Josh Klein, Zach Luttrell, all those guys over there, Vincent Richardson, and I think Colin Hoggard's over there now doing some writing for him. They're killing it. Den, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Doing well, man. Happy to be here. Finally, I'm not only just watching you here on Facebook Live.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to finally get you back, man. I know you've been busy doing your podcast stuff. You're killing it. I'm a big fan of your stuff. And then joining the Riot Report, I've been following all of that. We've always talked about how well Josh and them do. It just kind of be a seamless fit for those guys over there at the Roaring Riot. They brought you. You got Chris Allen and Bobby up there with y'all. Always fun to listen to. You crack me up. You crack me up in your podcast, and then you're talking Panthers on top of it. And every now and then you throw in some Madden, which is, I'm the same way with you on Madden. I love playing it. I get up here and even play some live games with the some of the viewers sometimes, and they crack on me about how bad I am, but that's okay. I think I never claimed to be great.
Dude, I watch you play Madden all the time. What do you mean? I'm always sitting there, midday just watching a dude play Madden online, so I hear you. I wish I could do that, man.
Yeah, well, that's on my long weekends only. I try to keep, Sundays get boring sometimes, so you have to pick it up a notch, but Den, you and Chris were able to travel to Dallas. I know last year you went to Philadelphia and made the draft last year. This time you went to, and I believe it's technically, isn't it Arlington technically?
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things, kind of reminded me of here in Boston. Patriots play like 35 minutes from Boston, so
Right.
You don't really get that deal. Dallas is kind of the same way.
Yeah, well, that's y'all were able to make that trip down there to watch the draft, to cover it for the Riot Report. I've got the pictures scrolling up now on the slideshow of some stuff that you sent me from up there, to kind of give everybody a little backstage, I guess, pass somewhat to see what it was like there outside of just the television coverage. Tell us a little bit about it. I know you had a special interview with this guy right here, actually, Jason Baker, former Panthers punter. Tell us a little bit about the experience, man. I can only imagine how much fun it was.
Yeah, dude, Jason was awesome. But, as far as the experience, like you said, we went to Philly last year, and that was awesome, just because it was a real city feel to it. Everyone was kind of out. It was almost like Woodstock in a way.
Right.
Free for all up on the draft. But this was the first time they ever had it in a stadium. So we were kind of we didn't really know what to expect, because there were a lot more rules. When you mentioned it being in Arlington, one of the toughest things was, when you were going to the draft, you had to pack for the whole day. because you couldn't really go back and forth to the hotel, you know.
Right.
So, and on top of that, a lot of bags aren't allowed in certain areas because now you're in a stadium. You're not just walking around the street. So, made it a little tougher for people to bring what they wanted to and keep their phones charged. But it was great, man. Once you got in the stadium, I guess that's the other part of it too. Is if you didn't have a ticket to the draft, you couldn't actually go in. Whereas in Philly, you could stand anywhere.
Oh, you could just kind of wander around in Philly?
Yeah, I mean, it was outside, so it was really kind of public. I mean, there was 100,000 people there. Whew. And, yeah. And there still technically was in Dallas, but it was split. I mean, half of them could only get to the outdoor events. But once you got in there, man, it was crazy, man, because they didn't have the teams sectioned off like they did in Philly. It was really well organized. So the Panthers fans, or I think every team, had 50 tickets to give out. I don't know how much you could see of this on TV, but so they put all the fans together and they put all the divisions together. So between the picks, yeah, there's a lot of trash talk going on, especially as the night goes on because people can drink in there. So it was pretty cool to be down there, and you know, every pick on day 2, you had some legends come on. That's why Jason Baker was down there. Jordan Gross also down there. Would come over and say, you know, hi to the fans. So it was pretty cool little experience down on the field. Definitely a unique look at the draft. That hasn't really happened before. So, but yeah, it was a great time down there, man. It's awesome to be down there with the Panthers fans.
Yeah, and you know, I did notice that it seemed like all the groups of fans were together, and I mean, I guess that's not untypical at a draft. I mean, fans see other fans of the same team, and you typically just kind of want to flock together anyway, but it did seem more organized this time. Now, I feel like there'd be a lot of 28-3 trash talk if we were right beside Falcons fans. Was any of that going on? Was anybody giving them a hard time?
There was, yeah, and most of it was probably coming from Chris. Because me a little bit. Chris had the fan kind of side of it. He was down more with the fans and in the fan section than I was. I was more kind of doing media things up front, taking the pictures and all that. So we kind of got both sides of the draft. You know, the fun stuff as well as, you know, a little more of the analytical stuff, the more serious football talk, and we kind of, you know, combined them up onto the Riot Report and Roaring Riot Instagrams, 2 separate handles. So those are still up there, so you can check those out now. All 3 days of Instagram stories.
Absolutely. And I was following it along. That's why I was up there tweeting. I was like, if you're not already following them, you need to be right now because they had some very good. You had some very good stuff rolling up there. It was fun to see it, you know, from a first person kind of standpoint. And it's good to know that you were able to kind of do your job and enjoy the fan side of things because that's where it can get kind of hairy sometimes when you start diving that deep into things. But speaking of the draft, that's why we're here tonight. The Panthers picked first, 24. This DJ Moore is the pick. Obviously, everybody knows by now, but we knew this pick was coming. I mean, well, let's say this. If DJ Moore fell, I knew this pick was coming, and I feel like a lot of others did too. You probably did as well, but I don't think a lot of people didn't see Moore falling this far because he had, you know, jumped up draft boards saying he was the number 1 wide receiver overall, just above Calvin Ridley. And nobody thought him or Ridley would be available at 24 coming into the week. But a lot of us, you know, were talking about as much interest as Carolina showed for DJ Moore, he would be the pick if he fell. I mean, I think everybody felt pretty comfortable about that. What were your thoughts and even a little bit of fan reaction there, I guess, if you could chime in on that as well. What were your initial thoughts on DJ Moore? I'll let you go first, and then I'll jump in and tell you mine.
Yeah, no, and you said basically what I was going to say. You know, I didn't expect DJ Moore to be there. So when we did our mock drafts for the Riot Report, I made my pick of Justin Reed, which which wasn't too favorable of a pick. I get that he's not a huge impact safety, but mostly because I didn't expect DJ Moore to be there.
Right.
And I think there's all those funny memes, or not memes, but just photos of Norv Turner just marveling over him at those pro days.
Yeah, they started to get creepy there for a while.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, you know, when I went back and looked at it, my buddy up here, Dave Archibald, he actually writes kind of a Patriots pro writer for InsideThePylon.com. They do some great draft stuff, and he asked me like a month ago, Who's your kind of dream number one pick? Who's your guy? And I said DJ Moore, and then we kind of laughed, and he's like, yeah, he probably won't fall that far. He's like, don't you think what are you going to do about Norwell? And he's like, how about a guy like Isaiah Wynn? And lo and behold, the Patriots, being a thorn in my side, take Isaiah Wynn the pick before. Makes me wonder if he was available, if they still would have went DJ Moore there. Because I know there was a lot of people talking about how they needed an O-line, even me, or secondary with that one pick without reaching up to get a one, kind of like, we saw that with Kelvin Benjamin. Not all, round one receivers work out, but
right.
They went DJ Moore, and, when it came to the pick, as far as like we were talking, running the kind of media thing, I didn't even realize he was still up there because I was kind of running up to the stage to get Rogers' announcement, and I just saw it live. I didn't see Twitter or anything. I just waited for the name to be read, and he said DJ Moore, and I was like, here we go, another receiver in the first round, and then you start hearing Steve Smith talk about him outside. So I don't think
that got people all been out of shape. I mean, everybody was hyped all up about Steve Smith saying that.
Yeah, and I talked with Vincent Richardson, who also is a great draft stuff for us here at the Riot Report, and we talked about how Hurney couldn't really screw that pick up that much.
Right.
I mean, as long as first. So we're okay with it. We've just seen it too many times, I think. Kind of reaching for that offensive weapon when we can't block for Cam. But on the same token, guys like Andrew Norwell who were undrafted and got terrible, UDFA draft grades. So you can't really tell until these guys put the pads on. But I didn't hate the pick.
Yeah, and that's that's the same thing I was saying live, and I know I've discussed it with you, through messaging and whatnot. I didn't hate the pick either. Now live, I'm sure anybody that was watching our show up here live, my reaction was it probably didn't come off excited because I knew the pick was coming. As soon as pick 24 came up and DJ Moore was on the board, I was telling people, I was like, okay, it's DJ Moore. I mean, we just need to go ahead and prepare for that, which I like I said, I didn't dislike the pick either. You can't hate Marty Hurney for sticking to his word and finally trying to go out and get an explosive weapon for Cam. I mean, the athletic scoring for DJ Moore is there, and the production was there in college. His quarterbacks were a revolving door throughout his career, and none of them were good. And he still put up numbers. I mean, they weren't the best numbers in college football, but you can't expect that when he's dealing with that kind of quarterback play. But he blew up the combine athletically, 4.4 240, so he's bringing some speed. And then he had the 39-inch vertical, which shows you judge your explosion off of that. And obviously the biggest thing in the talk is the yak of what he's going to bring as a playmaker coming into this offense for Cam. And I think that's the biggest thing, and I've got these highlights of him rolling up here right now for everybody. And, I watched this film well before the draft, and because there was a lot of hype building up around him, and I was just I was like, he's good, and I hate judging somebody off who has to deal with quarterback play off of that, but I was a big Anthony Miller fan. And I mainly because of his value in the second round, and just like you were saying, I felt that if we could get a guy like, and this is neither here nor there now because Frank Ragnall was off the board when we picked, but if he fell, I felt like he was a guy who could have potentially been a pick over Moore. And like you said, Isaiah Wynn, if he'd have failed that extra pick, would we have taken him over Moore and then gone for like an Anthony Miller in the second round? But Miller was gone before we picked in the second round as well. So it's all how the dominoes fall. We knew Hurney and Norv and the guys like DJ Moore. And at this point, I guess all we can really do is hope he brings what everybody says he's going to bring, because we know Hurney hasn't had a good track record for picking receivers in the draft. And we have haunting memories of Kelvin Benjamin coming to us at 28 and building this, big towers for Cam and never getting separation. Hopefully DJ Moore can help do that with Devin Funchess on the other side and Torrey Smith.
Yeah, it's funny. We were calling them the Monstars. It's funny how this team's philosophy switched in such a short amount of time.
It's funny what Ted Ginn will do to your team, isn't it?
Yeah. But, one of the other things, that Hurney did say is they were going to be patient and let the board fall to them. And Colin Haggard, just wrote an awesome article on the Riot Report about how they did that, but it didn't really work out. And I do believe he didn't necessarily name any names, but I think one of them might have been that number one pick. Where it was kind of that. I hate to use Jimmy Clausen, but that example where we kind of have to take this guy. Like, some of our other guys are off the board. DJ Moore's our guy right here. We're going with it. It might not be the number one need we have, but we have to take the guy and a DPA right there. So I'm all right with it. I mean, there was a lot of talk about why you picking DJ Moore over Curtis Samuel. And right. I know there's a lot of arguments online right now about whether he can play the outside or not. So I'm interested to see how they're going to line these guys up. Definitely a lot of fast sets. But, even when Samuel was healthy, it kind of underwhelmed at times. So I wonder what we'll get out of DJ Moore. It could be the opposite.
And, it's funny you said something about people arguing over if he could play outside or not right now. And for those that didn't see it, I don't know how you would have missed it if you were watching the draft, but Steve Smith got up there and said, basically, he said, quote, unquote, the Carolina Panthers have never been able to replace me until now, after they picked DJ Moore. Which, coming from Steve Smith, fans like ourselves, it's almost like a holy grail because Steve Smith is the GOAT in our eyes. I mean, he's the greatest Panther, in my opinion, to put on a Panthers uniform. He's been my idol growing up as a athlete. But to hear him say that was like, wow, okay, he really believes in this kid. But he is built like a Steve Smith. He can actually, unlike, a smaller Curtis Samuel or Christian McCaffrey, he can get in that slot and take that hit over the middle, bounce off, and keep trucking, just like Steve Smith used to do. But where he doesn't compare to Steve Smith, in my opinion, is DJ Moore is a very shy, quiet guy. We all know Steve Smith was one. He was a pit bull. He was going to get up in your face. He's going to make a play, and he wants you to know about it. So that's one area he didn't hit. But that's basically what Steve Smith was saying, and I completely agree with that, because one thing you see on his film, and just like the highlights that we're just showing right there, when he gets that initial contact, he can bounce right off a guy because of his build. I mean, he's only 6 foot, but he's 210 pounds, so he has that stocky size to him. And then we'll go ahead and jump right into pick number 2, Dante Jackson, cornerback. This is a guy I'm excited to talk about, number 1, and then 2, hope to see him translate like he did at LSU as a small guy, kind of talk some trash, but loves to hit and can make some plays and play corner pretty well. And he's pretty versatile there too. How'd you like the second pick, Dan?
Dude, Dante Jackson was a guy I really liked. I had him in my mock actually in the 3rd round. So when the pick was coming, the 85th pick, the 55th pick was round 2.
Right.
I was hearing some rumblings from the guys back at the stadium that Jackson's high on the board. And I was like, wow, I was surprisingly impressed with that. So I really like Dante Jackson at all. He's kind of has that, I don't want to really compare him to Josh Norman, but he has a lot of those characteristics.
Right.
A little bit of swagger, a lot of speed, a lot of that. One of the things he was known for, being the fastest guy in the draft. Can never hate that.
Right.
But also, the way that he baits quarterbacks into interceptions. And we saw that with Josh Norman in that 2015 game winner against the Saints early in the season. That kind of reaching back, diving, interception to save the game. I think Jalen Ramsey does that a lot too. So he has a lot of characteristics like those guys. Where he'll fit in our secondary is all kind of up in the air right now, I think. We're going to have to really go through a pretty good camp to see who's going to be starting out there. Because, you get Corn Elder, too, who I think is a big piece in the secondary as far as if he can play and be the guy that they hoped for when they drafted him before the injury. That's a big piece as far as not having to start over here. So see where he falls in, as well as Jackson and Cockrell now, too. I'm excited. We actually have not really a lot of names out there, quote, quote, but kind of that Legion of Whom again, where I think a lot of these guys can turn some heads out there.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny you brought up the Corn Elder thing, because that's actually something I wanted to hit on with this pick. And, obviously Jackson played some slot cornerback at LSU. He was very versatile. He even played some safety, though a lot of the times he'd line up in the safety formation. he was kind of falling down. He would rotate at the snap and fall down on the slot guy. As Billy Marshall's been doing film review on each of these picks, by the way, at Cat Scratch Reader, some good stuff there. That's the only reason I know that tidbit. But he was showing how he falls down on these slot receivers. And you brought up Corn Elder. I'm really interested to see what's going on with Captain Munnerlyn, because 2017 was a really interesting year for Cap. You know, he struggled with playing time. It seemed like they wanted to keep Shaq Thompson in man coverage against some of these slot receivers. I mean, and Munnerlyn voiced his opinion and frustration, and then he walked out on a practice and said it was not about playing time, and there seemed to be conflicting reports about that. So I'm kind of interested to see where all that falls. I mean, Corn Elder is coming back, and he was expected to be a big piece in 2017. Now you throw in Dante Jackson, and all of a sudden you've got a bunch of young competition there. And, I mean, like you said, Jackson's fast, and they're going to need that against division speed at receiver.
Yeah, especially with Ridley over there now. No, but yeah, Munnerlyn was a name I meant to bring up when I was talking about Elder, because you just pretty much answered the question for me. Yeah, we don't really know the future of Munnerlyn either.
Yep.
That all those things that happened last year, talked about that. That's kind of what I meant. So if you lose a Munnerlyn in a year or two, and then Elder doesn't work out, that's where it kind of started to worry me, as we're still building the secondary kind of over again. And for the Golden pick, I was a little. I really didn't expect a double dip there at cornerback on day 2. But I don't really know where he's going to fall in here. I know they're trying to move him to safety, or that's kind of what they could do with him, I guess, is a possibility.
That seems to be the plan. I mean, everything you read right now, that seems to be the idea. And, I mean, that's going to be interesting. He played a lot of safety, at the last half of the season last year. I think he rotated around quite a bit there before. And, you still got a little bit of free agency, I guess, post-draft, but they seem like they really want him to compete at that spot.
Yeah. One thing that I'm mostly concerned with, though, Tripp, as you know, is how good are these guys going to be in Madden? Like, is Dante going to have like a 95 in speed or like a 99? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. That's what I want to know about. And while we're gonna get in Madden here in a little bit. I'm gonna finish this draft talk, but I've got that on my list because Madden 19 is right around the corner. And I know some of our viewers here dig Madden and love playing. I still got to get with some of them to play against. I think we're going to start a little Madden community up here for Panthers fans. But, yeah, I'm definitely interested in some of those grades. And then round 3 you just talked about, we kind of hit on Rashawn Golden. He's listed as a DB, as a cornerback when he was drafted. Really feel like he's going to go to safety. So that's going to be interesting to see how he competes there. And then round 4, the Panthers went tight end and got somebody who didn't have a lot of production in his 1 year in Division I college football at Indiana. Only 28 catches, but his testing was there for the combine athletically, and he's also appears to be a pretty good blocking tight end, which is something the Panthers really, they tend to covet behind Greg Olsen for that running game. And this could be another playmaker for receiving threat for Cam at a good value in the 4th round. Den, what are your thoughts on getting? You can't argue with trying to get another weapon, and you don't know how long Greg Olsen is going to be here. We only got a couple more years. I know he just signed a new contract, but he came off a foot injury last year. Those can tend to linger sometimes. Hopefully not, but hey, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I was surprised by the Ian Thomas pick as well in a good way. I had them going Dalton Schultz there. I forget if he was actually on the board or not at that point with the 88th pick, but I think he was actually gone. But, Ian Thomas is kind of one of those under-the-radar, just all-out athletes. I know that tough to compare a rookie to a Hall of Famer, but kind of has a lot of the things that Hurney and Turner and Rivera had with Gates, back in San Diego, and kind of the size is similar, and just the type of play is a little similar.
Very good point.
Just athletic freak, pretty good blocker, immediate upgrade to Ed Dixon. I don't. Yeah. I talk bad about Ed Dixon because that was his role as kind of a TE2. I think it just kind of got magnified when one of the best tight ends in the game is out for most of the year, and you're losing that production in that area, you kind of expect too much from Ed. But Ed has had his ups and downs, but I do think Ian Thomas is just an upgrade to the passing game a ton over Ed Dixon, let alone being a pretty good blocker. So I knew they had to go tight end. I didn't even consider Ian Thomas. I don't know why. That's why I don't do mock drafts, and I just let it happen and kind of don't call myself a draft guru. But I'm pumped to have him, and he's got a hell of a backstory, man, too. So
yeah, I mean,
I'll be happy about.
There's a lot of prospects out there to try and cover, and getting him all right is like just slim to none. So it's like throwing darts at a board after the first round, really, and even the first round sometimes is. But another thing, you were talking about an upgrade over Ed Dixon really immediately with the 4th round pick there. And, Dave Gettleman tried multiple times to get a late tight end at value to try and groom behind Greg Olsen for the last few years. I mean, Chris Manhertz, this is already an upgrade over all of them if he's healthy going into camp. I'm not saying, obviously, he's going to come out and dominate the 2018 season and take over Greg Olsen's job or anything crazy. But those guys they competed and they had a role and they made the 53 and played some, but it wasn't like they could actually put up a lot of production. This is somebody that you could see come in and do well as a pass-catching tight end behind Greg Olsen, I feel like, anyway, versus the guys DG tried to draft.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Bo Sandlin was going to be our next Greg Olsen myself, and next thing I know, he's looking for a new team. So. Oh,
you just like the inner Sandland quote thing.
So many things with that. I mean, this is where I people question my Panthers fan card, but I've never eaten at Bojangles.
Do y'all even have Bojangles up there?
No, the only place that I can even go to is when I go to Charlotte a few times a year. So.
Oh, okay. Well, if you've been to Charlotte and you never made a stop through the drive-through, shame on you. Then shame on you.
Well, I don't have a car. It's
Wait a minute. You've met Chris down here how many times, and he's never taken you to Bojangles, like the king of Bojangles?
Exactly. We almost laugh about. And I mean, I've been going to Charlotte at least for 1 or 2 games for the last 11 years.
Oh my goodness.
And I've never been to Bojangles, but anyway, they have it's bow time, right?
Mm-hmm.
The marketing would have been just through the roof with Bo Sandlin, but oh well. I think he's on the Packers now, isn't he?
I'm not sure, but that's actually a pretty good. It'd have been like the next Jake Delhomme or something, for the Carolinas there with Bojangles. But you need to talk junk to Chris about that next time you're on the podcast, because that's definitely on him if he's been hanging out with you in Charlotte and never taking you to Bojangles. He can't talk junk to you anymore. I'm taking that card for you.
He brings it up.
That's funny though. But so next pick, we'll roll on here. Marcus Haynes, defensive end. This is after, of course, the Panthers traded back their second third-round pick earlier. That's kind of how they came up with Ian Thomas in the 4th, by the way. And they got pick 101 and 136, took Ian Thomas with the first overall pick that day. And then later fall down, get Marcus Haynes, defensive end. This is a spot we talked about was going way under the radar for Carolina coming on this defense into 2018. You have Julius Peppers, you have Mario Addison, both are in their 30s. Yes, they're still productive, but you have Deshaun Hall, who they drafted last year. You're hoping to come back from injury and put in, be a good role player. But you needed somebody else here, and hopefully they're hoping Marcus Haynes can do that, the defensive end they drafted.
About him, but definitely an area that they need to address. I mean, who knows how long? We know how long Peppers will be here, but who knows how long the rest of the guys will be here?
Do we know how long Peppers is going to be here? I mean, he could play another 10 years the way he's going, man.
That's true. I think this. He did say this is his last year, right? Or was that only kind of a Ryan Khalil thing?
I don't know. I don't know if I ever saw it was his last year. I believe it might be his last year, though, personally. I don't know if I ever saw that, but I think it's personally his last year. I know Thomas Davis said that, but now there's stuff on that, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's some awesome gifts that the graphics team over at the Riot Report is amazing. Jamie kills it over there, but he immediately put up a nice graphic of Matt Ryan just getting absolutely drilled
with his long neck.
Yeah, doing a couple barrel rolls. But yeah, there's a big hit by Haynes that's pretty fun to watch. So check that out over there. But no, I mean, I had to address the DE there. I was surprised they kind of did it that high. But yeah, I have no problem with that pick at all with at 136. Tons of speed, dude. That dude's a freak. The only thing that he kind of reminds me of is kind of that passing down kind of rusher, and not going to be a guy that's going to stuff the runs on the edges. So it might be kind of pretty situational with him early on, but we'll see. Maybe he can turn into a 4-down lineman. And
that's fine. I mean, I'll take that. We got to have some semblance of a pass rush from this front four, so we don't have to blitz so much again. And I don't necessarily, Eric Washington has said all but he's not going to blitz as much as Steve Wilkes did last year. So I guess we'll see how that rolls out and plays out in 2018. I don't see it happening that way unless they absolutely have to, which we're hoping not. But pick 161, Jermaine Carter, linebacker, teammate of said DJ Moore in the first round. 3-year starter at Maryland's defense, was a captain. So, I mean, thoughts there. Thomas Davis is leaving shortly. Not sure. You think Shaq Thompson's going to be back. We like to think that. But you need some more depth there and maybe some more competition.
Yeah, I mean, everyone will kind of frown upon drafting a middle linebacker just due to our linebacking.
We got Luke Kuechly. What are we doing? Well, what if he goes down?
Right. Exactly. But, I mean, he's kind of an Iron Man out there. Started every game he played at middle linebacker for 2 years. Carter, he's a big guy. I just, obviously it's tough to be a linebacker drafted by the Panthers right now.
Yep.
You can talk about the future, but as far as what you're going to be doing this year, I mean, Carter has played some pretty good special teams as well. So, like I said, Iron Man started every game at middle linebacker, led the team in tackles for all those years in Maryland. Checks all those boxes. It was just kind of weird for him to be that pick there to me.
Right.
Again, not addressing the O-line. Maybe they just had I really don't know. Maybe Hurney had such a small sample size of guards and tackles that he or even centers that he liked. It was this one surprised me as to why they took him here, but I can't be mad about who the player is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And then rounding out, pick 242, Kendrick Norton, defensive tackle. Panthers lost Starla Tulele this year, and then picked up a huge free agent in Dontari Poe to go alongside Quan Short. And I really like this front starting line for Carolina right now. You got Julius Peppers, Quan Short, Dontari Poe, Mario Addison. Those two in the middle can be so disruptive, and you could we've all talked about it all season since free agency started, and they got Poe. Poe is potentially an upgrade over Starr. Starr was great for creating gaps for Luke Kuechly and run stuffing ability. He got some sacks obviously, but Poe is much more disruptive inside, and he can actually, with Atlanta he even switched around some. I mean, he was pretty versatile on that line, so we'll see if Carolina uses them that way. But obviously Kendrick Norton, Miami defensive tackle, picking up depth here and hoping they can groom somebody behind those guys.
I mean, obviously with Starr and Short in the middle, last year DT was probably one of the least needed positions, especially going Vernon Butler, with the first pick. But
yep. Oh man, I forgot about Vernon. Stacked.
Everyone still kind of wonders what Vernon's going to do. I mean, not really knocking him that much. He's got two of the best guys in the game in front of him. Mm-hmm. Not really a problem with that. But like you said, I mean, Poe is. Starr was just not a pass rusher. It just wasn't what he was, and that worked for the Panthers. On paper, Poe being a pass rusher should work. Like you said, Starr does have the knack of taking up extra guys. We'll see if Poe can do that. I know that he can. But again, I got a new guy on the line. Kind of my joke is that I might get some sacks this year in Madden. I keep wanting to talk about Madden Trip. I don't know what's going on here.
Hey, well, guess what? It's Madden season, baby. Because that's what we're talking about now. Who's going to be your starting lineup in Madden 19 as far as your skill positions go? What are you going to make any changes? Obviously, you're going to have changes for the update. I mean, there's going to be Torrey Smith. You're not going to have Kurt Coleman. So Kelvin Benjamin's obviously going to be gone. Of course, he was gone halfway through this one. But what are you thinking right now off of after the draft picks and free agency? What are you thinking right now?
Well, both in Madden and in real life. I mean, I'm concerned about who the running back is. Although I do like Cap in Madden. He's actually faster than Jonathan Stewart. But
I actually haven't tried him at all once, honestly.
Oh, you got to run around the edge once.
He's
score?
Okay.
Send me a text. No, but I mean, that is a legit concern. You know, not addressing running back. I know we do have a lot of time. There's names out there. I don't know if the Panthers are a team that would really pull a trigger on DeMarco Murray or C.J. Anderson. Could certainly help keep Cap back there. Then you got Fozzie, a little crowded back there without a true running back. So.
And will this team get rid of Fozzie? I don't know necessarily. And honestly, you know, we were kind of talking about this right before we went live, and I just, you know, you told me to look at the photo, and I did. Christian McCaffrey is bulked up, dude.
Dude, he's got a drug test coming. I probably tomorrow morning.
I hope
I mentioned it to the Riot Report guys, and I was like, dude, Christian's arms are pretty big, and that was a few weeks ago. And today he's like, there was a picture of him and I believe they're in the weight room, kind of doing this confidence pose, and he looks like the Hulk. Like it's almost like a photoshopped photo. His arms are bigger than his body, and
dude,
I guess that's a good thing. I can't get mad at a guy for bulking up. Not having a true number one running back, it does work in the NFL. You've seen it on the Patriots. In the right offense, with our old run-first offense, it does worry me how they're going to really use these guys. I don't know if Christian's the guy to give the ball to every time, but we'll see. What do you think's going on with the running back? Do you think that they fill that or they roll a Cap?
You know, man, early in the offseason, I felt like that they would want to address that position, and I was wondering if Cap would be the guy. And, you know, Rivera said Cap's definitely going to get an opportunity. But, you know, that can mean anything with Rivera. I mean, yeah, he's going to get snaps in training camp. I mean, we know that. I mean, he's going to get some type of opportunity. But is it a legit opportunity? Is he going to be the guy before somebody else that they potentially bring in? That was my initial thoughts as we went into free agency. As it went on, I'm not convinced that Carolina doesn't want Christian McCaffrey taking the majority of those touches that they lost with Jonathan Stewart and trying to keep him in somewhat of a rhythm. When they actually gave him the ball more and more touches later in the season, he actually did better running through tackles and, you know, kind of picking up a rhythm. And now that they've actually put, you know, good weapons with Cam, not great weapons, but this is I would say this is the best receiving core Cam's had in his tenure in the NFL. And you've got 6 receivers that are going to be on this roster. I would be shocked if they don't keep at least 6 receivers on this roster unless there's an injury somewhere between now and the season. I think you still have him as a receiving threat out of the backfield, but I think that he could get some of those touches. And then you can't forget, like you mentioned him earlier, Fozzie Whitaker. This guy has been with Carolina. Ron Rivera has kind of stuck with him through, you know, getting Christian McCaffrey and bringing Cap and drafting, you know, 3 or 4 and keeping 3 or 4 running backs. Fozzie's been there the whole time. So he could still be a play somewhere in there. But I feel like McCaffrey, there could be a surprise to a lot of people. McCaffrey could be more of that, you know, every down back with maybe even with Cap mixed in situational roles. But I feel like he could still get 15 touches a game easily.
Yeah, and one of the things that sticks out fresh, at least for me, is and a lot of this wasn't his fault, but I feel like McCaffrey had a lot of just bad, wrong play, wrong time kind of first and second downs, and a lot of his big plays were actually on 3rd and longs. They ran a few draws to him on like 3rd and 8s or screens.
And he got a few of those.
Yeah. So I don't really know what that goes to say because a lot of times he just got blown up in the backfield. A couple times he just completely made the wrong cut. So you had kind of a fair share of his fault versus not his fault. And then, you know, as far as Fozzie goes, special teams, he's a big player, and I think there's a lot of players that are on or have been on the Panthers that they have kind of that one game or one play that makes you question their cut. right? Like Fozzie had a great game against Patriots. He had that big kind of screenplay. Same thing like Russell Shepard, game one, makes a big play, and you kind of get excited. And when you think about losing those guys, you kind of think about those plays. I do wonder why Fozzie's on the team still. Yeah. I like Fozzie, not against him. I just think it's a little crowded back there, and not that he takes up a lot of money. I think it's just like he's like owed $1 million or something. So it's not something that's really hurting the team. So I think they just kind of keep him from now while they can,
Yeah, and I think Shepard's one of those guys that I think could potentially. I know he's still going out with the offensive guys, like on the bowling night and hanging out with them this offseason. I feel like he could be cap casualty this year. Like I said, you got Devin Funchess, Torrey Smith, Curtis Samuel, Demir Bird, DJ Moore, and I'm forgetting somebody. Who is it? Is it Shep? Is that the only one left?
Yeah. Right? Did you say Samuel?
Yeah. Samuel, Funchess, Moore, Bird, Smith. That's 5. Okay, so yeah, Shep might have a chance. I don't know. I still feel like I'm forgetting somebody because I thought I counted this out earlier before. But anyway, that's still a couple extra $1 million that they could spend on a running back like you were talking about earlier, C.J. Anderson, if they actually wanted to bring in some competition. And that is one thing that I love Carolina has done this offseason is they have brought in competition. That wide receiver competition is going to be fantastic to watch at camp. I hope everybody stays healthy because it could really give us some depth, going into the season. And one thing we haven't really talked about, you kind of mentioned it in the first round. We hit it on a little bit. Carolina did bring in 3 guards, undrafted free agent guards, which is exactly where Andrew Norwell came from before he took off with Carolina. And Ron Rivera admittedly said he didn't think that Andrew Norwell was going to be that good, and he had to thrust him into the lineup in 2014 due to injuries. And we saw what came of that. Helped lead to 2015 and a great, historic Panthers season. And now it's led to his huge payday. Maybe one of these guys. You got a Clemson guard that came in, Penn State guard that came in. Both of these guys are huge. And, one of them blocked for Saquon Barkley. I mean, that's going to help you a lot, obviously. But who knows? Maybe one of these guys could be a diamond in the rough. You're creating competition there. And then there's, a lot of people feel like Taylor Moton should get a shot at the left guard situation. But the team apparently kind of views him as a tackle, but he's going to get an opportunity at left guard. So, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts on that offensive line right now.
Yeah, and we see it in the comments there. Yeah, sorry, Wright from the Vikings was the other receiver.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, and that's one of my favorite. I think that's one of the most under the radar free agency pickups for us as well, being he has history with Norv, and he's a quicker slot guy. So yeah, those are the 6. Those are the 6 guys I was talking about keeping.
Although he did rip Norv's offense this week. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, yeah. He could teach it to a baby, but is that a bad thing?
If it works, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It means more can't come in and get harder for him, right? I would hope. Anyway.
It's funny, you're talking about Norwell. Just a couple draft day forum kind of comments here. About Andrew Norwell when they signed him, saying he's good on an O-line. He's probably the 6th O-line player that you dress on a game day just in case. You get another one here. Probably flashed enough in college to leave it as a possibility to be a starter someday. Another person, do you think he could be a starter? Absolutely not. So, I think, all these things are funny to look at in hindsight. I mean, I can pull up draft reports on Aaron Rodgers and DeMarcus Russell, actually.
Antonio Brown.
This guy's going to, on the other side of the token, DeMarcus Russell had one of the highest draft report grades. Like, this guy's going to be an absolute star. So, we'll see. These guys that you don't know of today might be the guys that you franchise tag and then rescind the tag and let them walk later, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with the NFL, man. You can, people, you look back at Antonio Brown. I mean, he tweets it about every year come draft time. What the critics were saying, he ran a 4.52 at the combine. They're like, oh, that's not going to be good for him. And then he's out there. He's one of the most explosive receivers, and nobody can guard him. He just gets all this separation. And there's just a lot of things that go into it. Personally, I was a big fan of Michael Gallup. I don't think he was a great fit for Carolina and what they were looking for in the draft this year. But I think he could do really well. I think he will do well with the Dallas Cowboys. I think they got a great steal in him. But, it's like you were saying, you just don't know, especially when it comes to offensive line. Now, I'm not saying I like taking a chance going into undrafted free agency for a potential another diamond in the rough, because those are probably not a dime a dozen. But if you find that guy, it's great. I mean, we picked up Taylor Moton last year. Everybody felt like, hey, why isn't he getting some time at guard? And apparently the team views him as a tackle. Darrell Williams is on the right side, and they're loving what he does, depending on who you talk to. And then we all know Matt Cleo on the left flashes sometimes, and then he's just downright terrible again at times. So, I mean, and this is really the most important part to keep Cam healthy and upright. I mean, you can have all the best playmakers in the world. If your quarterback has 2 seconds to throw the ball at times, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, even receivers too.
Yeah, that's right. And speaking of quarterbacks, a certain NFC South quarterback just got a big extension.
He did. I don't know if you follow or any of the listeners follow Lindsay OK on Twitter.
Yes, I love her.
Yeah, she is one of my favorite followers. You know, she writes for the Ravens Wire and has had this thing with Matt Ryan about because he got drafted with Flacco, and they always compare the two. So she has some pretty funny things to say today. You know, the problem is like with these quarterbacks, bad quarterbacks getting such huge deals. I mean, you almost have to pay people like Matt Ryan
Absolutely.
a deal like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't think the Falcons really have a choice.
Yeah.
In that, and I'm worried about when Cam's contract's up.
Yeah, you can't. This day and age in NFL, with the prospects that have been coming out at quarterback, I mean, every once in a while you'll get your one like your Russell Wilson in the third round or somebody like that. But when you have a guy like Matt Ryan or a good quarterback at all, they're going to get paid nowadays. I mean, look, remember when Cam got paid and everybody was like, and some people will still say this just because they hate Cam, and that's just the only reason they would say it. But everybody was talking, God, they overpaid Cam, and Cam's deal right now looks dirt cheap considering what these other franchise quarterbacks are getting. And Cam's an MVP quarterback and went to the Super Bowl the year after, I will mention, that he got that big contract and shut all those people up. But here is Matt Ryan, $150 million contract extension, $100 million guaranteed. He's the first player to average at least $30 million base salary per year in the NFL. It's insane. I mean, it's crazy. And obviously he's had Julio Jones for a lot of those years. Matt Ryan's not I don't like Matt Ryan. He plays for the Falcons, but he's not a terrible quarterback. He's a guy you have to pay. It's like Bill Vogt told somebody on Twitter, what are you supposed to do? You let him walk and take a chance on nobody? You can't do that. You have a guy like Matt Ryan, you have to keep him around. That's my opinion too.
Especially, I mean, you look at the QB rankings right now. You got Kirk Cousins getting that money. Matt Stafford's getting that money. I mean, Breeze, of course. Derek Carr. And you get Jimmy Garoppolo up there, who's played 5 games in his career. You know, when it comes to paying Matt Ryan, I mean, what are you going to say? You know, I think this is just the way the NFL works for quarterbacks, and you're just going to see this number go up and up.
Yep, I completely agree. And that's the thing, when Cams comes back around, like you said earlier, what's he going to demand? And, you know, he's still got 2 years left, so there's no telling how good he's actually still going to be then. I mean, obviously we hope he keeps doing the things he's done, and now that he's actually got some weapons, maybe the offensive line can gel together and he gets back and improves the MVP form, because he has that potential. I still believe that, but it's going to be interesting to see. One last little note that we didn't hit on earlier, and I meant to. Some of you may have saw Carolina defensive back coach Curtis Fuller has resigned. Ron Rivera was asked about it while golfing at the Wells Fargo Championship Pro-Am, and he said it was a complicated situation. Marty Herney declined comment, and obviously Fuller hasn't, he hasn't gotten back, and Steve Drummond hasn't gotten back with anybody with comments. But I said something on Twitter about it this morning, Dan. I've seen accusations all over the place saying what it could possibly be, and I just want to say I feel like everybody should just – I know it's been a crazy last year for Carolina Panthers fans with all the turnover between GM to start with, and then you had Jerry Richardson allegations and the sale of the team and all these other turnovers, Steve Wilkes leaving, Eric Washington coming in, and they're having to adjust a bunch of other coaches. I think everybody needs to take a deep breath, because this could be a multitude of things, and at the end of the day, it was done as done. This could be family related for him. You don't know. To get up there and start blasting somebody on Twitter saying, "Oh, maybe he's part of this Jerry Richardson allegation," it's completely unfair to him and what it might actually be as of right now. And I think everybody should just wait for details to come out. And we don't even know that we will hear anything about this. A new coach come in and be completely swept under the rug. But I haven't seen anything else on it, Den. I don't know if you have or if you've heard anything amongst the Fuller.
No, they're keeping this one pretty tight. And you know, I totally agree with you. There are a lot of fans calling the Panthers stupid today.
Yeah.
For firing or whatever. I don't know. Was it happened yesterday? Whatever.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Or, for firing him, and they didn't even fire him. It said that he left the team. So, you know, you can obviously speculate. Did he not like the draft picks? I don't think that's it. I don't know if that's what a complicated situation is. Like you said, it could be family. It could be health.
Yep.
It could be a multitude of things that have nothing to do with football. And the Panthers have gone through, I think it's 12 coaching changes. We've pretty much
had
a new face. We pretty much have a new face in everything except the head coach in the last few years. So it is a lot of changeover, but it also comes at a good time. I think that secondary, and I use that term lightly, hopefully everything's okay. But as far as the timing of it, I mean, you got a pretty new secondary. So you can start kind of from the ground up. There's at least that bright side of it. And I'm not worrying yet, and I'm on board with you as far as speculation and just kind of let this play out. And maybe we will never know what happened, but definitely a kind of a blindside piece of news there.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to hit some of these comments. I see some people chiming in now. Mike Strib jumping up here. Welcome back, Mike. Thanks for joining again. He's up here saying... I'm sorry, it wasn't him. It was Dante Ames. He's saying cut Ryan Khalil and start Larson, or I just dropped it. Start Larson or put Larson at left guard. And Larson, you know, he does have some experience at guard. Cutting Ryan Khalil, I don't think you're going to see that happen. They just paid him $1 million signing bonus. Well, they were forced to pay him $1 million signing roster bonus about a month or so ago, I believe it was. So he's probably going to be here. If they wanted to cut him, they'd have got rid of that contract earlier. A restructure, I guess, still isn't out of the question, but I wouldn't count on it. Larson at left guard is still certainly a possibility, I believe, too, though. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the kind of trends now in the NFL is you see a lot of guys now that can play both.
Yep.
Isaiah Wynn was listed as a guard or a tackle. A lot of people were talking about Larson and Billy Price if he was up there, if you could put Billy Price at center and move Larson around the line. So I think he will kind of maybe see experience there. I'd like to see Larson, and we saw him all year last year. I don't think he did a bad job considering the unexpected start.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that you're going to see a lot of people moving around and kind of see where they fit. And not kind of have one guy to one position, at least in camp goes. So hopefully, I mean, at least Mac Khalil, I feel, can only play one position, and not sure he does that too well. But for a lot of the other guys on that line, I think that shifting them around is something you're going to see in the next few months here.
Yeah, I definitely think you're going to see some competition and switching around at training camp. Let's see here. Dante Ames again saying Cam's still athletic, just needs to get the mechanics right and great line protection. And that's something, this is the real reason why they brought Norv Turner in, was to help improve Cam there. Dan, I got a slight echo coming in. Is that your phone?
No, I haven't touched anything. Sorry.
I don't know. But anyway, that's one of the reasons they brought in Norv there. And, Rivera said he felt like Norv was the guy that can really push Cam to that next level. And now they've gotten the weapons, and it's going to be interesting to see how Norv develops that. I was never really big on Dorsey as the quarterbacks coach, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I know a lot of other fans felt the same way of Shula, how Shula and Dorsey were like trying to grow Cam. It just didn't. I don't know. You saw Cam excel, but I don't really feel like it was ever Dorsey or Shula doing it. What do you think? I mean, I feel like Norv could do better there. You've seen what he's done in the past.
Well, I think one thing that goes hand in hand with the offensive line is the plays that you call, right? And one of the things that I've always harped on, I see him play every Sunday here and hear how great he is, Tom Brady, you don't see him sit in a pocket nearly as long as Cam.
Right.
And I don't think that has anything to do with him having like better receivers or anything. It's just he has a lot of places to go with the ball quicker, and you can kind of counteract your offensive line that way. And that's something I feel the Panthers are still struggling at, or were struggling at, with Mike Shula. The screens or the kind of blitz, defense plays weren't really working well. That's not to say they can't work with Norv. I think that if you have more of a quick hit yak offense, which DJ Moore is a perfect tool for, you're not going to see Cam sitting there in the pocket and talk about his mechanics. It's going to be more of a quick two-step drop and throw versus what we see as far as him having to really step into a ball. So I'm anxious to see what kind of offense and how different the offense looks from Mike Shula with Turner. So as far as that, in regard to his mechanics, I think that if they shorten them just by calling the right plays, you'll see a whole nother Cam Newton.
Yeah, and that was the talk surrounding last year, saying that getting Christian McCaffrey, that's what the Panthers are going to do. They're going to go to these quick stops. It's actually getting DJ Moore is going to be fun to see because maybe the Panthers actually have a wide receiving screen game again, like they had with Steve Smith back in the day. That would be fun to watch and team up with McCaffrey and those other guys. And we were talking about the coaching changes earlier this year, throughout this off season and whatnot, and administrative management changes. It's really 2018 could be a complete surprise in multiple ways. So I think it's going to be fun to see how it all unveils. I feel like this could be the year Carolina finally gets their first back-to-back 500 season, above 500 season. Excuse me, or is it 500 or above?
Yeah, it's funny how that's a goal of ours, but yeah, that would be cool.
It's pretty bad to say, right?
I mean, it's bad to say, but also, I mean, when you hear that, you don't think of where the Browns, I mean, there's been Super Bowls, there's been NFC Championship games in that stretch. It's just kind of funny how it all works out. So, a lot of new faces on the field and on the sidelines going into this year, but I think we're all pretty optimistic.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Just hope we can stay healthy through camp.
There you go. That's the goal.
Are you going to be down there at camp?
I'm going to go down there for a little bit of camp. I don't get the luxury of popping over being up here in Boston, but I think this year is the camp year for me. So. Yeah,
sweet. Well, I will definitely be down there at least 2 days. I'd like to be down there a few more if I can make it. We're going to see. So maybe we can link up together down there at the same time. Dante Ames commenting, Trip, do you think Cam can read defenses quickly? I've seen Cam make tons of pre-snap reads on defenses and torch them. So, yes, I think he can. I mean, if he's reading it before, I think he can read it. I mean, obviously, he's made errors before, too. I mean, every quarterback does it. Aaron Rodgers does it. Tom Brady has done it. But, yes, I think Cam reading defenses is a little blown out of proportion, personally. You don't necessarily win an MVP because you can't read defenses. So, that didn't happen by accident. But
he can
ahead,
definitely read a defense. It's just more of I think that I don't know if it's Cam himself or Norv now needs to give him more options. I feel like the defensive read might not work out, and then the plays in the past has been kind of screwed. If you get all these guys that like the yak eaters, like a Moore, McCaffrey, Samuel, or at least give Cam more options of that's the long play's not there. Immediately we have to switch to this check down. And I don't think there's enough of those in the Panthers offense, especially when they run kind of their max protect a lot. A lot of times there's only one or two receivers that are really the read. And I think that hopefully will change with Norv.
Yeah, and these new weapons will actually give Cam separation as well. That's something that they didn't have in past years either, and that's one thing we've always talked about. In 2015, they had that. Cam was lighting it up on deep passes and everything. That's what helped lead him to an MVP. And to get him back to that, I think you need that separation, and they have speed now. So I think you will see some of that. Michael Ross commenting, who do you think starts for our DBs and nickel? Obviously, James Bradbury is going to be the main starter going up against the bigger receivers. mainly on the left side. Cockrell is still somebody that's not getting a lot of talk, but I think you'll really see him compete for that outside job. What do you think, Dan, as far as safety? I mean, they're talking like they want Galden to really compete there. We'll see. You still got some more free agency potential there. But what are you thinking there?
So right now, I think you got Bradbury, of course. I think Cockrell is gonna take that number 2, kind of Worley role.
Yep.
You're gonna see Jackson and Elder kind of battle in camp for that slot role in Munnerlyn, of course, for that slot role. Like I said, the Galden pick really kind of puzzles me right now, and not really in a bad way. I just don't know where he's going to excel, and I wouldn't be surprised if they still bring in a safety. I mean, Adams and Cersei back there and Colin Jones. I know that this is a defense that doesn't really value the safeties with the front seven, but I don't know if that gets it done, man. We had Kurt Coleman and Roman Harper back there. It's been a long fall since. Mike Adams doesn't play well. He's a great depth guy, and so is Cersei, and so is Colin Jones. But there's got to be another name out there, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Marty Herney recently just said that they have definitely looked into Eric Reed from San Francisco. Now, obviously, that could mean anything, but he has said that they've looked into him. That was post-draft, I do believe, too. So it's not that they're not still looking at safety, and they definitely can, because you're going to need, again, we were talking about competition earlier. More competition, the better. So I think you'll see that. But I really think I think safety is where they're going to want him. But I'm with you. I think it's going to be hard to keep Dante Jackson off the field. Just judging by his mantra and how he carries himself, it's going to be hard to keep him off. And he's good. I mean, he's a good cornerback. I think he's going to compete strong for either that slot, that nickel role, or even maybe for the outside. We'll see. He's pretty versatile. Michael Ross, again, also, is Boston a good sign up even for just a year, or does he not fit our defense? Well, I think he obviously knows our defense, so I wouldn't say it's a bad fit. I think he's going to want more money than we would be willing to pay him coming off a good year in L.A., and I think that's still the reason why he is on the market. Dan, what are your thoughts on Trey Boston coming back?
I actually had a dream that the Panthers signed Trey Boston, so I wouldn't be completely shocked. But
Dan,
you just said,
the free agency guru.
Yeah. But hey, I've had many dreams that we've signed Anquan Bolden too. So.
Oh, I bet.
But no, I think if you see Trey Boston come here, it would kind of be a second option. I don't think he's their top guy. I think they know that he's out there. He's more expensive now than they'd want him to be. But also, he's not finding work. So as he doesn't find work, that number can go down. So I think that Boston is on their radar if the price is right. And if he does kind of fall in the free agency draft here, and they can get him at the right price, I would not be surprised at all. He's a plug-and-play guy. But I think I know they talked about Eric Reed. He has a lot going on right now, as do the Panthers. So
yeah.
I don't know where that stands. But I think that Boston's kind of their safety choice. They just don't want to pay him what he's looking for right now.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I would love to see Boston come back, but it's like you said, the longer he's out there, he can only demand so much. But you would think at some point somebody might want to pay him. But then again, I'd have thought he'd been signed by now. But the safety spot as a whole has been down this year. Brandon Montero up here commenting saying that Bradbury might not win the number one job, cornerback job next year. Ooh, strong words. Now, he didn't have a great 2017 season like we all thought he could, but he wasn't terrible. So I still think he's the guy at the cornerback position right now. Cockrell might be able to give him a run for his money at that, but Bradbury's got that size to compete with the Mike Evans, the Julio Joneses of the NFC South, and that's pretty key.
Well, one thing that was touched upon earlier in the comments, I forget who said it, but we're kind of building the secondary as different guys to cover different types of players, right? I mean, we saw that, you got the Ted Gins there. Now we have someone like Dante Jackson. Then you get your size guys. Bradbury can match up with them. So, I think you'll see a lot of moving around as far as matching up with specific players. A little different than what we saw with Josh Norman, where he kind of just covered one side of the field. That you might expect a little more of, is kind of seeing more. I don't want to call it man defense, but more man-on-man matchups. So yeah, I don't know. Bradbury, when you say, he did have a tough year, I mean, he essentially should have cost them that Bills game. But Zay Jones decided not to catch that, which was cool. I thank him for that. But Bradbury did have a down year after having such a good year, and I think that makes it even harder to really assess where we stand right now. The spectrum's kind of too wide. He wasn't, just okay. He was kind of good and bad. So, which Bradbury will you get in his third year here? Is a big question for the Panthers. So I do agree with that comment that Bradbury might not be on paper our best cornerback.
Yeah, I mean, he had a kind of sophomore slump year, so it's like we were talking about earlier. All of it's kind of going to be a surprise going into 2018 in a lot of positions. We knew we had a lot of holes to fill. I think overall we've done a pretty good job considering the worry going in. Now, we haven't really nailed any of those positions, but we won't be able to judge any of this until after next, the 2018 season and where we go and how far we make it, before we even make it to the playoffs. I feel like this team could compete there. It's going to be interesting to see. I definitely think they're a 500 or above team as of right now, but only time will tell. We've got a lot of camp to go, and you got to make it through the preseason healthy as well. So we'll be able to talk about it and know more then. But Den, I appreciate you coming on tonight. It's been an absolute blast as always. I've still got people jumping in here commenting. But like I said, I appreciate you coming on tonight. We're definitely going to have to link up on some Madden sometime soon. But you're a PS4 guy. I think I'm getting ready to switch to PS4, actually, when the new Madden comes out.
I'm just getting ready to switch to Xbox because I hate PS4, but more of my friends have it, so I'm kind of forced to buy it,
Well, that's exactly why I'm moving to it. I mean, all my friends have PS4, so it's like, and a lot of the viewers up here have PS4, and they're like, you need to get on PS4. I think two of them, well, when I talked about making that community page, a couple more Xbox guys jumped up there, but I think I am going to make the move because several of my friends have the same thing, so maybe we can get up here and have a game together too. That'd be cool.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you can beat me live stream.
Oh, shit. I don't know about that. I haven't seen you play. I've seen you talk about how bad you are, but normally that's when people are really good. You always get on Twitter and you're like, oh, I just got my butt whooped, but I came back and won my last game like I always do.
Well, I have like an insanity rule where if I lose a game online, I have to play again. Like I'll stay up till like 3 a.m. just to leave on a good win.
Hammering Red Bulls. I'm not going down.
Yeah, but I actually haven't played Madden in a while. I've kept away from it, especially it's tough during the spring and the end of the winter.
Yeah, especially doing all this.
Yeah.
And look, now people are dropping their gamer tags in the comment section. That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have a big old update coming next time I log in, that's for sure. So, but like I said, y'all be sure to check out Keep PounDenn podcast. They're on. Go ahead and tell them where you're at because there's a lot of stuff to listen. I don't want to miss one, and I know you can roll it off the tongue.
Yeah, no, man, appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm personally at Keep PounDenn on Twitter, which is finally starting to, when people realize my name's Dennis and I don't just spell terribly, it feels a little better. But yeah, we have the podcast over the Keep PounDenn podcast over on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, all that, and we do some writing, and all the podcasts and videos are on the Riot Report, RiotReport.com. So you can find the Instagram stuff is mostly what we did at the draft, and that's kind of what we're gearing towards. But and one of the things I wanted to point out real quick was we talked to Jason Baker there. Trip down to the draft, and he was a trip man, no pun intended. We him in the lobby of his hotel, which was actually the players' hotel. So we said hello to Jordan Gross over there too. Josh Jackson sat literally next to me. And just grabbed a Coke or something at the bar. And it was a cool time over there. But we talked to Jason about some pretty cool Panthers stories. That's up on our last podcast. So go check that out. But I wanted to mention that because when we were talking about the draft, little insider information here. He insisted multiple times that he was there to read the 88th pick, and that and I asked him, I said, what happens if they trade that? And he said, well, I'm going on vacation tomorrow, so I have no idea, but it won't be me. Huh. And then he trots out there for the 85th pick. So it makes me wonder how, and Handgartner was the other guy to read, so I wonder how in advance that trade was made. I feel like by the 85th pick, it was a done deal.
Very interesting.
Just a little fun fact there from before the draft that we learned.
Yeah, and I've actually listened to that podcast, an interview with Jason Baker, and he seemed like a really cool, laid-back guy. A lot of fun stories there. Y'all's graphic with one of his quotes talking about running that guy down. I actually had that picture and graphic up here on the stream earlier for your experience while you were down there. But very good stuff. Like I said, guys, check it out. Great podcast, fun guys. More great coverage for Carolina Panthers. Josh Klein, Vincent Richardson, Colin, Zach Luttrell, all them guys of Roaring Riot Report, killing it. And they're only going to continue to do it. I can assure you of that. And while you're at it, check out the It Is What It Is podcast with Josh and typically Zach. I know Zach is probably neck deep in Roaring Riot t-shirts and membership packages right now. So killing it. Yeah,
they actually just had their last podcast has Andre Smith on it as well, and he talks about playing the tuba, which is definitely a pretty fun listen. So yeah, It Is What It Is pod. Actually Jermaine Carter joined that as well. So two of the draft picks hopped on with them this week for some off-field stories that'll make you laugh.
Yeah, I've listened to about almost the first half of the Andre Smith podcast on the way home. I haven't caught the end of it where they started talking about the tuba, but I'm looking forward to that part. I can only imagine Josh Klein talking about a tuba. I know he loves him some brass instruments and jazz and stuff. So, but anyway, we will catch you guys next week. Like I said, y'all check out Den. He does this stuff weekly as well, and the guys over at the Riot Report. Follow us on Twitter at PantherSource. Like and follow the page right here. Share this. Share the page. Y'all have been killing it this last year. I can't thank you enough for the support. And we're going to keep this thing rolling right into OTAs, training camp, and everything else, keeping it right here, discussing it with you. Thanks again. Y'all keep pounding and keep PounDenn and all of those fun little words and twists and verbs. And look, I'm a poet and didn't know it. All right, I'm out of here. I'm done with this.